The royal family honored the life of Prince Philip in an intimate funeral ceremony before laying him to rest. Only a small portion of the family was in attendance due to COVID-19 restrictions. This was the first time many of them had been together in months. Philip's sons, grandsons, and daughter walked in the procession behind the prince's coffin before the funeral service. A moment of silence was held across the UK in honor of the prince before the ceremony began. Prince Philip had a hand in planning the funeral. The ceremony was filled with music and readings from the Bible. The prince's coffin was then lowered into the royal vault, where he will be laid to rest with other members of the royal family. Joining me now from Windsor is CBS News foreign correspondent Charlie D'Agata. Charlie, thanks for being here. So give us your thoughts on the funeral of Prince Philip. There were only 30 people in attendance. Is this the service that he wanted?
Lana, it's not the service that he wanted. It's the service that he planned. For circumstances that were under his control, he planned this funeral as much as he could. Circumstances beyond his control, it actually worked out in his favor. The weather worked out. That was one plus. But yes, in terms of just having 30 people in that congregation because of COVID restrictions here, he always said he didn't want to be made a fuss of. The original funeral would have had 800 people. And what you did see, if you've seen some of these stunning images around Windsor Castle, is this huge outpouring of military forces that were here. More than 700 armed forces took part in this funeral in one way or another. And it just shows his level in service to duty, his dedication to duty, what it meant to him. It was his request. Some of the hymns were military hymns. And there he had, if you want to put it that way, 30 of his closest friends and family, the people that he would have wanted to be at that service. So yes, is it something that Prince Philip would have appreciated and approved of? Yes, he did, because he planned some of it. And then for other reasons of having this very intimate, as you described, is this very intimate service in such a grand place. It's not what we're used to seeing with the royal family. And I think it was very poignant when you looked at pictures of the Queen, you looked at pictures of the royal family, essentially on their own. It just sort of made it more human.
Yeah, Charlie, as you're mentioning the Queen, she was sitting alone throughout the ceremony. Was that because of COVID restrictions or for another reason? I'm also wondering how Buckingham Palace balances that private grief, as you're saying, this intimate feeling about losing a family member with a public display of a funeral that's broadcast around the world.
Well, it is a difficult balancing act. And I can tell you from experience, you don't see a lot of video images of the Queen at weddings, at funerals, anywhere. They try to limit that because out of respect, she is the sovereign, she is the Queen, and she needs to be respected, especially in one of the saddest days of her life. Now, in terms of answering your question is, why was she alone? Yes, strictly speaking, there are COVID restrictions in place, far tougher than anything you'll see in the United States here in this country, and have been for a number of months. And she is an older woman. She's falls in the vulnerable category. Was it really necessary for her to be that alone? Probably not. They are attending a party, but that place is big enough to take 30 people in several of those rooms and still respect social distancing. But in terms of the fact that the rest of this country have had to self-isolate or be away from their grandparents or great-grandparents, she's just reflecting what's going on in the rest of the country. But it was stark in those few images when you did glance at her. She looked so very alone. She's lost her best friend, her rock, her stay. She has said it several times. There are very few people in the world that somebody like Queen Elizabeth can confide in, including her son, Prince Charles, a future king, her grandson, anybody within her family. There's probably party of one that fills that void, and now that's been taken away.
Interesting, too, how we know that so much of the Queen's mission is about setting that example for the nation. So for her to be alone in this moment of grief, both symbolically and practically. Charlie, let's talk about the legacy of Prince Philip and how his death is being felt there in the UK.
Well, the interesting thing, and it speaks volumes about Prince Philip, is that whenever anybody discussed legacy, he would always say, It's up to other people to decide what my legacy is. But he did leave a lasting legacy. Look at Windsor Castle itself. There was a terrible fire here in 1992, and it decimated the place. So St. George's Chapel, where he was laid to rest, I have to be careful of the wording there, he actually redesigned some of the chapel, including the stained glass window, to reflect firefighters who were involved in saving the castle. He was in charge of all of the reconstruction assigned by the Queen to do that. So he's very proud of that sort of legacy, not Prince Philip's legacy, but the legacy of the royal family, the legacy of Windsor Castle. He has dedicated his life to service to the armed forces. And you saw that displayed in the funeral. And he has a tremendous amount of respect for the work that the armed services do, not just here, but around the Commonwealth and around the world. He also leaves the Duke of Edinburgh, which is a thing as a father. Young people are part of this program, and everybody, almost everybody, signs up for it. And it's about getting out to the outdoors. It's about learning about climate change. It's about learning how to protect the planet. He was involved in hundreds of charities across the board, so many of them having to do with military service and families of the military. His importance to the Queen herself, his importance as a patriarch, you know, a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather to literally future kings. So his legacy is something that is proven every single day because he's been part of the main frame. He's been as high as you can possibly go without becoming the Queen for more than 70 years. His legacy is seen every day, everywhere around you.
Before I let you go, Charlie, there was obviously some concern and questions about Prince Harry's presence. What can you tell us about those issues and how they were ultimately resolved?
Do you know, I've been sitting in on some of the discussions with the palace having to do with the funeral. And we could ask them questions. And I said, well, yes, we can put it off on Palace Source as well. It was brought up a couple of times. What's going to happen when we see Harry and William, Prince Harry and Prince William? Is it a big deal that they've been separated by their cousin, Peter Phillips, in that walking line behind the cortege? And it was thrown back to us, say, we are not going to get involved in the drama. However, the drama is there. We were all waiting to see the body language on Prince William and Prince Harry. You know, he comes after this so-called royal rift. What I can't tell you with any authority is whether he was able to speak with or communicate with Prince William in the days before the funeral, because he had to go into quarantine. He had to self-quarantine for a few days when he arrived here earlier this week in Frogmore Cottage, happens to be here at Windsor Castle. So we don't know if the princes had any meaningful discussions. All I can say is what I saw, and that was after the wedding, they were seen chatting. They were seen walking side by side, I'm sure smiling, but they look relaxed. And I guarantee that's going to be front page in newspapers in the States, here in the UK, because, you know, people want them to resolve the situation, to resolve this rift. And it was something that Prince Philip felt very strongly about. He was the enforcer of the family, and they've come together to grieve together, and they both share a fondness and a respect for their grandfather. So who knows? I mean, we can only guess that possibly they'll have time to speak, and maybe, you know, tomorrow will be a better day for them.
Let's hope that everybody has a better day tomorrow. Charlie, thank you.
Thank you.